Wings of the Sky, Book 1. Bleeding. By Ember Artworks and Estuary Enterprise. The Lost Song Prophecy. Heed the siren song that sings when the clock forgets to tell time. For now the flames will be extinguished and plunge into darkness. Raise your voices as when the moon is stained with the blood of the dead. Now sing with voices transcending the darkest umbra. Now stand as one against the dark. Planters of hope, unity and entropy, a song echoed through the ages of all dragon kind. The Flames. Moonflames. Description: slender, moon crest on their forehead, deep blue or purple scales with crescent moons on the underside of wings, black claws. Abilities: invisibility in the night and the royalty can control the moon's path. Homeland: Moonstone Peaks. Ruler: Queen Full Moon. Sunflames. Description: slender, multiple wavy horns, yellow, orange, or gold scales, sun pattern on wings. Abilities: glow with blinding light and royalty can control the sun's path. Homeland: sun-baked desert. Ruler: Queen Celestial. Moth flames. Description: furry, when young they are wingless but they grow to have 4 wings, different patterns for individuals, long elegant horns and long feathered antennae. Abilities: sense danger with antenna and produce sleep-inducing pollen from fur on chest. Homeland: lavender meadows. Ruler: Elder Atlas. Polar flames. Description: slender, white scales, long jagged horns, serrated claws for digging in ice, and fur on underbelly to warm eggs. Abilities: frozen breath, smash ice with ease, and have thermal vision to find prey in snowstorms. Homeland: frozen tundra. Ruler: King Ice Shard. Ivy flames. Description: legless, 6 wings, green, brown or emerald scales. Abilities: control over plant life, some can create entire forests when they want to. Homeland: eternal woods. Ruler: Elder Rosethorn. Gemflames. Description: slender, thick gray scales on legs, head, and tail. Wing membranes are translucent with different combinations of colors. Abilities: superheated fire that can melt gems and royal family can create gems with magic. Homeland: Gemstone Cavern. Ruler: Queen Amethyst. Thunder flames. Description: thick golden armor scales along back and wings, dark brown underbellies, royals have blue wing fingers. Abilities: horns can fold forward to shoot thunder. Roar is said to cause lightning and thunder, eat iron ore. Homeland: Lightning Highlands. Ruler: King Bolthorn. Breeze flames. Description: small, snake-like, large translucent wings, light blue scales and large black eyes. Abilities: fly with the wind and can travel long distances with small breaks. Homeland: no official homeland but have a migrational route. Ruler: Elder Gust. Prologue. 10 years before current events in the Obsidian Fortress. Boom. Another blast hit the side of the palace walls. The heat was still felt through the obsidian. Was it a sunflame or thunderflame, Starlight? Asked Queen Sunrise. King Starlight looked through the small hole in the wall. He could not see any dragons from his vantage point. The streets were ablaze with lightning strikes and lava pooling below. Starlight looked at Sunrise. She was tired and afraid as she had just laid the egg of their dragonette. She clutched the egg close to her chest. The black starry side swirled together with the vibrant yellow on the small egg's shell. Looking back outside, he replied, "No, my love, I can't see any dragons out there." He looked back at her. "Now is our chance to run to the sea, we have to go." He leapt to the shelves and grabbed a silk sling. He took the egg from Sunrise's talons and wrapped it around the egg. He gave the sling back to Sunrise and began to clear the door of the tables they had placed in front of it. "No, wait, Starlight," cried Sunrise, "we can't leave our dragons or take our egg with us, we have to let another dragon raise it. If we are found they will kill our dragonette, no matter who we are. Having a hybrid dragon in the royal bloodline is against the accord we all signed." Starlight looked at her. She was right. He did not want to risk his dragonette's own life. But who would look after them? We still have to run away, all the rulers know what we did. Who would care for our hybrid dragonette? Sunrise thought for a minute, then answered, "What if we wait to see which flame they will look more like? That would allow us to ensure they would be safe with the flame it more closely resembles. If it helps, why don't we put the egg under the moon like what the other moonflames do with their eggs?" Starlight's face softened. He always wanted to do that. He planned to do that with any dragonettes he had, but would that work with a hybrid? Especially one of the moon and sun flames? He decided they should at least hide away somewhere close but hidden. He asked if Sunrise knew of a safe and hidden location. "I do, there is a hidden spring close by. I am the only dragon that knows where it is. The problem is the path to get there. Many dangerous animals live in the forest around it. The only way to get through without death is to stay silent and not upset the animals out there." Starlight agreed to the spot. They grabbed any supplies they needed and began the long journey to the hidden spring. The night sky was calming, but the fire still raged in the obsidian fortress. The area burned like the lava of a volcano. Starlight tried not to look back, only focusing on Sunrise and their egg. The sky slowly turned orange with the sun rising in the east. "Who is raising the sun today, Sunrise?" asked Starlight. "I believe my daughter Celestial, because of my absence." The forest soon became visible to Starlight. It was a dense mass of tall, lush pines and conifers. They landed on the edge of the tree line, looking up to the trees that seemed to be the guardians of the whole area. "Here," said Sunrise, pointing to the path through the trees, "that is the way to the spring. Just be careful, and don't eat anything." Starlight nodded in agreement. The two started down the path. Sunrise was right. The amount of dangerous creatures they saw was numerous. There were wasps the size of a dragon's head, snakes longer than a full-grown ivy flame, and plants that could fit a whole dragon in its jaws. But despite the danger, they managed to reach the spring unharmed. Sunrise placed the egg on a large rock that had a divot inside. "This is the one place that receives direct moonlight." After she set it down, she walked over to Starlight. "Is everything okay, love?" Starlight looked at her and sighed. "I just feel that we should have told our families what we were doing and who would rule." Sunrise sat next to him and said, "But if we did, they would have known where we were and killed our dragonette and possibly us too." Starlight agreed. At least they could live together like they dreamed about. Time passed, 4 months. Starlight watched the egg for movement, then it happened. Crack. The dragonette was hatching. Starlight looked up and saw an eclipse. An eclipse? What will this do to our dragonette? Sunrise ran to him and held his talons in hers. The dragonette emerged from the egg. Sunrise took the dragonette in her talons. "He is perfect. He takes after you, Starlight." "What should we name him?" Starlight looked at his dragonette. He had orange-tipped wings and yellow-tipped talons and tail, but as Sunrise said he was primarily a moonflame. He was so small, his head alone was as small as a dragon's claw. "How about Nova? That suits him." He turned to see Sunrise's reaction. "I think it is a wonderful name," she said, looking back to Nova. "You'll grow strong despite your size, won't you?" Seeing Sunrise this happy was the one thing Starlight loved to see. Boom! Sunrise looked up and saw a bolt of lightning hit the ground above. "Did they find us?" Sunrise's tone went from happy to scared. Starlight looked through the small hole. King Bolthorn was outside. "It's Bolthorn. He's outside. Keep yourself and Nova quiet, we can't let him know we are in here." Bolthorn was an imposing dragon, said to have conquered the origin of all storms in Kaiken. His body gleamed with golden scales and deep blue wingfingers. Starlight flew down and hid with Sunrise and Nova. "Shish," he said. They hid for 3 hours in silence, then Bolthorn left with a boom of thunder. Why was he here? This is not His kingdom were close to the Ivy Flames territory. Starlight didn't know. Bolthorn never came here, he hated the Ivy Wings and their soft nature. I don't know why he is here, but Nova has to go somewhere else so he can stay safe, said Starlight. No, I won't allow it, yelled Sunrise, he just hatched, I won't leave him. Starlight took Sunrise's talon in his, we have to give him to a Moonflame, that way he will live. Sunrise then asked, who would care for him? Starlight replied, saying, Crescent, she has no dragonets. She would be the only dragon who could care for him. Sunrise sighed, and how do you know she will help? Starlight said in a serious tone, because she is my sister and will do anything she can to help. Part 1. Taken. Chapter 1. And stay there, weirdo, yelled the Moonflame, no one here wants to be your friend. Once again, Nova was being bullied. No one at his school liked him, not even his teachers. But he had grown used to this treatment. Only his adoptive mother and his adopted sister Luna were kind to him. He crawled out the open window and began the flight home, his bag tight around his chest to make sure he didn't lose his homework, though he already knew he would receive a bad grade anyway. The sky was turning deep orange by the time he got home. Crescent and Luna were sitting at the table when he walked in. They looked extremely worried. Where were you, Nova? We were so scared. Did you get lost? His mom was always the nervous one. He once got one of his wings caught under a boulder and, from then on, was monitored by his all-seeing mother. I'm fine, Mom, I just got locked in a cabinet again. 5th time this week. He looked at Luna, who looked as pale as the moon at night. Why didn't you call out? I would have beaten those dragons to a pulp, shouted his sister. And got in trouble, again. Last time you were homebound for 3 weeks. Crescent chimed in. Still, I'm his sister, everyone knows that and they still do this to him. Replied Luna. She had always protected him from the other dragons at school. Once he got pinned to the wall by a hulking Moonflame and Luna Barrel rolled into them, she got a deep scolding from Principal Dark Shadow that day. Besides, they always do it, just because I am different and smaller. All they do is prey on the weaker, that's the way of the world. Said Nova, he was always the dragon who believed that the world had to run its course, soon things would turn around. Well, now that Nova is back we can talk about tomorrow. We all have to go to the Moon Palace. It is the 25th year anniversary of the Accord of Flames being created, so there will be a big celebration and all the flames are required to attend. Oh yeah, Mother was to give a speech about living with the village dragons for 10 years now. Your grandmother Aurora is looking forward to meeting you both. You have to treat her with respect, okay? They both nodded. That's the one thing about them that was good. Luna and Nova were obedient. Later that night, Nova felt weird. He felt like his wings, tail, and legs were on fire from the inside. He tossed and turned in bed wanting the pain to stop, but then his vision went white as he saw destruction, a red moon, the sky blood red, and a dragon standing at the center of it all. When he woke, he found Luna and Crescent by his bed. Nova, are you okay? You looked like you died, cried his mother. You said something when you were knocked out, you said. Heed the siren song that sings when the clock forgets to tell time. For now the flames will be extinguished and plunge into darkness. Raise your voices as when the moon is stained with the blood of the dead. Now sing with voices transcending the darkest umbra. Now stand as one against the dark. Planters of hope, unity and entropy, a song echoed through the ages of all dragonkind. What, I said that? Asked Nova in a puzzled manner. Why would he say something like that? It sounded like a prophecy, but I don't understand it, said Nova. The gift of prophecy was an ancient gift. The only record of a moonflame with prophesying abilities was over 10,000 years ago in the royal family. The sun had yet to fully rise above the horizon, still time before they had to go to the Moon Palace. Well, you can rest, Nova. Luna and I will get everything ready for the long flight. Nova, you rest until we have to leave. I want to make sure you're okay. Nova agreed to the plan. He was left in his room for a while, then he heard it. There was a tapping at his window. When he got up to look, he didn't see anything out of the ordinary until a rock flew up and hit him in the head. Show yourself, now, he barked. Then he saw it, there were 7 dragons outside his window, one of each flame. "Hurry, come with us," said the Gemflame. But before Nova could answer, the Thunderflame grabbed him by the arm and yanked him out of the window. Nova yelped. Where were these dragons taking him? They flew with him for a while until they reached the coast, where they took him into a large cave. Nova was scared. Who were these dragons? Why did they take him? Nova tried to release the Thunderflame's grip on his arm, but they were too strong. Soon they all reached the end of the cave when Nova was tossed to the open floor. His body hit the stone floor with a loud thump. Zap, why did you do that to him? Asked the Gemflame. Sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. Are you okay? Replied the Thunderflame named Zap. Nova opened his eyes to see the dragons in front of him. Sorry about that, Zap is always aggressive with others, he doesn't mean it, said the Breezeflame in a calm voice. My name is Flo. Flo was very nice, almost like Nova's mother. I'm Crystal, the Gemflame chimed in. That Ivy Flame is Honeydew, the Polar Flame is Whitefrost, our Sunflame is Blister, and the Moth Flame is Secrepoya. Nova looked at these dragons around him. Were they insane or something? Why am I here? Tell me that, he yelled. Before Zap could attack him, Crystal held him back and said, Sorry, we were in a hurry to get you here. Honeydew, do you want to tell him? The Ivy Flame slithered over and said in a raspy voice, You are the Dragon of the Eclipse. You are the only one who can help us stop Bloodmoon. Nova looked at her with a confused expression. Who is Bloodmoon? He asked. Honeydew slithered over to a tunnel nearby saying, Follow me, Nova. Nova stood and followed Honeydew into the darkness. Chapter 2. Nova and Honeydew descended deeper into the tunnel. The rough stone walls turned smooth halfway down. Either it was just him, or were the walls pulsing with a faint golden light. Soon they came to a large oak door with writing engraved in the stone of the arch, which was a jagged message reading, For the ones who seek the dark truth. What did it mean by the dark truth? But when he saw the room, he began to understand. All over the walls were jars of a red substance, a mural of a dragon under a red moon, and on a small table was an amulet with a red crescent moon charm. What is this place? He asked. This is the reason you are here, Nova, replied Honeydew. She moved over to the table and grabbed a scroll with her jaws. She took it over to Nova and dropped it in his talons. Read, said Honeydew. Nova looked to the others who had come into the cave with them. They nodded for him to read the scroll. Nova unraveled the scroll and began to read. 100 ago, before the creation of the Accord, the Flames lived in constant warfare. But one dragon stood above all others. He was Bloodmoon, the savage tyrant that ruled the Moonflames. His power was able to turn the sky blood red and cause destruction when the moon's light fell upon anything. Many dragons fell under his power. But even he was not unstoppable. After 50 years in power, he was defeated by an ancient flame called the Noble Flames. The battle took 5 days and nights, but he was finally defeated but not killed. He was imprisoned within the highest point of the Moonstone Peaks. He vowed that he would return when the moon began to turn red once more. What was this? Nova had never heard of this legend. Who were the Noble Flames? Nova asked. He looked at Honeydew as she said, They were a flame of pure heart and soul. But after Bloodmoon fought them, a curse was placed on them. They became wicked, power-hungry dragons that were imprisoned on the Lost Isle. Nova was astounded. These dragons seemed to be a peaceful tribe, long before the Accord. Honeydew spoke again, but keep in mind, that is only half the reason you're here. The other reason is the prophecy you had. The prophecy. How had she heard it? Unless they had been following me for a while, waiting for it to happen. I am still wondering, how did you all know about me having a prophecy? Asked Nova. Thank Honeydew for that part, said Flo. Yes, I have the ability to see into the future. When I was young, I ate a large amount of prophetic poppies. There is a type of flower that can cause prophetic abilities, and because I ate so many, I permanently have the ability to see into the future. I mostly receive warnings that will affect the future. Wow, Nova thought. These flowers seemed to be a powerful item. When I began to see you in my visions, I knew you were very important. But him? I don't believe I am that special. Sure, I look different from most dragons, but I am still quite ordinary. Crystal hit him in the head. Were you not listening to Honeydew? You are important, she yelled. Nova was so confused. He was ordinary, he was just different. But if I am that important, can you tell me why? The others looked at each other, as if waiting for the other to say it. Well, started Flo, it's complicated, all we know is what Honeydew has told you, nothing more. Honeydew collapsed to the floor, her body convulsing. Honeydew, cried Cecropia. The moth flame rushed over to her and began to emit a purple pollen from her fur. It took 5 minutes until the convulsions stopped. Honeydew sat up with the help of Cecropia and Blister, saying something that shook Nova to the core. Bloodmoon, he is awakening. The palace is in trouble, he is going to kill all the dragons there. Nova became scared. His mother and sister were at the palace. They were in danger. Chapter 3. Nova ran out of the cave and took flight. Mother. Luna. You need to run. His wings ached the farther he flew. He soon had to land. The palace was in sight, no time to waste. Before he could take flight, Zap came up behind him. If you think you are doing this alone, you're wrong. We all have family in the palace, my dad is there. We are helping. The others were close behind. Nova took flight with Zap close behind, he was going to help anyone in that palace. They reached the gates, the guards were dead. Oh no, he's here, said Blister. Her wings were spread, as if she was ready to run. You are staying, Blister. Flo said, I'm scared too, but I am ready to fight. The 8 of them went into the palace. Many guards were dead, all with holes in their forehead. Nova began shaking, but he soon felt heat over him. It was Zap. He was wrapping his wing around him. He looked annoyed, but he seemed to do it on his own choice. They soon reached the entrance to the main courtroom. Maybe I should go in alone, I am a moonflame after all, they might accept my words. Zap seemed to pull him closer as he said, over my dead body, I'm going in with you. Nova felt embarrassed, so he said, Zap, I just met you, could you stop acting like we are together? Zap looked ticked off, but he lifted his wing and let Nova go. Nova entered the hall and looked for his mother and sister. As he looked, he saw red light floating around the room. Nova. Someone called out. Nova looked and saw his mother and sister standing near the far side of the room. He ran over and embraced them. Are you okay? Where did you go? What happened? Nova looked to his mother and replied, I'm okay, just went to go get some air, But before he could finish, the curtains opened atop the stage. The red lights came together as other dragons gasped. The lights turned dark as a dragon emerged from the mass. He was large with red wings, his horns of black as sharp as ice, his whole body glowed with a red light. Well, this is a wonderful welcome. His voice said nobility, but Nova knew who he was. Whoever you are in the palace of the Moonflames and the home of Queen Full Moon. Shouted a guard nearby. He looked down at the guard and crushed him with his claw. He then looked to the dragons in the room and said, well, if I recall, I am royalty, so I am allowed to have the throne, or does my crown no longer count because I have been imprisoned for 100 years? Does no dragon here remember who I am? Asked the dragon. I do. Someone said. Nova looked to see Honeydew in the doorway. I know who you are. You are the dragon of the blood-red night, Bloodmoon. Some dragons gasped while others began to tremble in fear. Well, a dragon does remember me, but I would not have expected it to be an Ivywing. They have always been submissive dragons, said Bloodmoon. He flew over to Honeydew and grabbed her in his claws. I suppose I should be thanking you for introducing me to everyone, but that would be all you are useful for. He began to tighten his grip on Honeydew, trying to squish her. Oh no you don't, cried Blister. She flew into the air and began to glow brightly. Bloodmoon covered his eyes and yielded in pain. You blinded me, you stupid sunflame. Bloodmoon swatted at Blister, but he tripped and fell to the ground, unconscious. Honeydew slipped out of his grip and flew over to Nova. We have to get you out of here. Bloodmoon can't know you're here, she said. Crescent and Luna looked at him and Honeydew. Nova, what is going on? Asked his mother. I'll tell you once we are far away from the palace. Honeydew, where should we go? Nova asked Honeydew. She thought for a moment and replied, the Polar Flame Kingdom, that should be okay. Honeydew, Nova, Luna, and Crescent fled to the door and took flight. The last thing they heard was Blood Moon saying, "You can run, but you can't hide. The era of the Blood Moon has begun." The others managed to catch up as they flew to the shore. "Well, what now?" asked Flo. "Right now we rest. The plan from here is to get to the Polar Flame Kingdom and find a way to defeat Blood Moon." They all agreed to this plan. "Sorry to ask this, but what is going on here?" Crescent asked. Nova explained everything to them, only to confuse them more. Soon, they all decided to rest before the long flight back. Nova was scared, beginning to have an anxiety attack. Why was this happening? What does Blood Moon want? What was he going to do? In the middle of his anxiety attack, he felt warmth around him. It was Zap again. "I know you said not to do this, but you need it. If there is one thing I don't like, it's seeing those I know in distress." Nova looked away. Why was Zap acting this way? They had just met earlier that day. Am I falling for him? Why me? In the middle of these thoughts, Nova fell asleep on Zap's arm. Chapter 4. Nova awoke to the sound of Zap snoring. "Hey, wake up," he said. Zap begrudgingly woke up. The others were still asleep, but outside looked odd. "Wait for me, Nova," Zap said behind him. The two of them went to the mouth of the cave and saw a haunting sight. The sky was red, blood red. The moon was now a deep pink. "Look, over there," Nova said. There was a small group of small pink-red creatures. They were all surrounding a moonflame. "Please, leave me alone," the dragon said. But in an instant the creatures attacked. They drained the dragon until they became a husk, no blood, no life, but they were up and moving. The creatures led the dragon to the palace. Nova moved in closer to Zap, his only source of comfort in the moment. "Get back to the cave. Now," Zap said. The two of them ran back. What were those things? What did they do to the dragon? "Zap, Nova, what happened?" asked the now awake Honeydew. Zap told her what they just saw. Honeydew sighed. "Those are blood leeches. They follow Blood Moon's commands. They can drain the blood and power of anything, and once they do, the creature is under the control of Blood Moon. So if we see them, we cannot get bit." Nova grabbed Zap's talon. Nova?" Zap said. "Sorry, natural habit. I do that with my mother and sister." But before he could let go, Zap put his other talon on top and said, "I didn't say to stop." Nova blushed. "Okay, you two," Crystal chimed in. "Let's get the others and fly, before we are found." Zap and Nova woke the others, got everything packed from the room with the murals, and began the flight northeast. Nova tried to keep some distance from Zap, sticking close to Honeydew. "Do you think Zap likes me?" Nova asked Honeydew. "Yeah, he definitely does. When you left for the palace, he immediately ran after you. Zap loved someone a while ago, but they left him because he shows his emotions too much, so he is quite possessive of those he likes." Nova blushed again. He thought he would never find someone who liked him, but the problem was that it was Zap, a male Thunderflame. "If you could, can you tell Zap to give me some time and space? I need things to slow down before I think about love." Honeydew said yes, it might be hard for him, but I'm sure he'll try. The flight lasted another day. "We're almost there, just through that storm," said White Frost. She was pointing to the wall of a snowstorm. "Once we cross the storm, we'll be in the Polar Flame Kingdom." The group advanced into the storm. The snow fell in sheets, and the cold bit at every point on Nova's body. Nova flew for a while longer, then a large gust of wind hit them, pushing them all in different directions. "Hello," Nova called. No one answered. He was lost. He began to fly in the direction he believed was northeast, but he hit a wall of ice. "So not that way," Nova said to himself. He flew in another direction, but any way he went, he only seemed to hit a wall. His claws felt like ice. "Where are they?" he thought. He tried to call out again, but another gust of wind sent him straight into a wall of ice. When he hit the ground he fell unconscious. Chapter 5. Am I going to die here? Will anyone find me? What was that noise? Nova was hearing something, a song. Whoever or whatever it was, the song was calming. He soon heard the song change as he began to levitate. He opened his eyes a bit, only to see a dragon. He lost consciousness again. Nova awoke in a strange place. It looked like an igloo. He sat up and looked around to see if the thing that saved him was still there. "Oh, you're awake." Nova looked and saw a dragon in the doorway of the igloo. She was a pinkish white with curved horns, a pair of tail fins, black dots along her wings, and she had 3 rows of gold necklaces on her neck. "Where am I?" Nova asked. The dragon moved to the table on the far side of the igloo. "This is my home. I'm Chorus, nice to meet you." Chorus, that was a nice name. Nova tried to study Chorus' appearance. She didn't look like a polar flame, or any other flame for that matter. "If you are trying to see which flame I am letting you know your efforts are in vain." Was she a mind reader or something? "I am a song flame, there aren't many but we are real." A song flame, Nova never heard of them before. Chorus walked over to Nova and gave him a bowl of soup. "Eat this, there's medicinal herbs in it." Nova looked at the bowl, just to make sure there was nothing suspicious with it. Once he confirmed there was nothing that could kill him, he ate the whole soup. "Good, you can still eat, and you have quite the appetite." He looked down, the bowl looked as if it was just washed. "It's okay, don't worry." Nova looked to Chorus and asked, "Can you tell me about the song flames?" Chorus nodded. "The song flames were once numerous, but after Blood Moon came to power, he drove us to near extinction. Our songs were able to heal and help any who heard them. But he made us look evil, calling us the Sirens." "Sirens? The Sirens are dragons." Chorus continued, "Even after 100 years, we are still monsters. But you can help us." Nova looked puzzled. Why was everyone convinced he could help them? "I'm sorry, Chorus, I don't know if I can help you." Chorus' expression began to go sad, but the others said that you could. More flames? Nova became puzzled by this revelation. Could these flames be other creatures that were said to be legendary? They all seemed to believe that he could save everyone. "Can I see the other Chorus?" Nova asked. She nodded frantically as she grabbed him by the arm and led him into a cave of ice. Chapter 6. Nova and Chorus ran down the cave. Nova tried to focus on keeping his internal temperature up by using the technique his mother taught him. He thought of fire burning him from the inside. Warm thoughts, he thought. They soon reached the end of the tunnel, and there, right in front of them, was a giant door of ice. Chorus knocked on the door and a small window opened. Behind it there was a dragon who barked, "Name?" Chorus said her name and the dragon looked to Nova and asked the same thing. When Nova said his name, the dragon looked at him and said, "It's you." The door opened and a bright light shone in Nova's eyes, but when his eyes adjusted he saw an incredible sight. There were dragons unlike any he had ever seen before. Some were like Chorus, they must also have been song flames, but some had green eyes and wings, and others had fur. "Follow me, I'll show you to our leaders." Chorus took flight as Nova followed. The giant cave was filled with dragons talking, selling things, and he even saw some staring at him. Soon they reached a giant ledge that overlooked what looked like a market. Nova looked in the room in front of them, and there sat 3 dragons. "Oh, Chorus. Who's your friend?" asked the one with fur. Chorus led Nova in as she said, "He is my new friend, Nova." Nova was brought to the foot of the 3 thrones. "Oh my bad, these are the rulers of the Forgotten Flames." Chorus pointed to each of them. The one on the left was the Song Flames ruler, Queen Harmonia. She was light yellow with long horns, black dots on her wings, large tail fins, and her crown was gold and ornate, embedded with emeralds. The one in the middle was the ruler of another flame, the Wolf Flames. He was King Howl. His fur was light brown, he had sharp gray horns, white fur on his underbelly, and deep blue eyes with a small obsidian crown. Then she pointed to the last one. She was Circe, leader of the Mage Flames. She had dark purple and gold scales with ram-like horns and a gold crown upon her head. "Well, it is very nice to meet you, Nova," said Circe. She walked down from her throne and put her claw on his. "You must have a lot of questions. I can answer any to the best of my abilities." Nova looked her in the eyes, hers were a deep purple. "I want to know why I am here," he asked. Circe looked at Howl and said, "Howl, get the scroll, and my daughter." Howl got up and went to the room on the right. Nova looked to Circe. "What is he doing?" he asked. She looked him in the eyes with what looked like nerves. "The reason you're here," she said. Soon Howl returned with a scroll, and behind him was a dragon with the same eyes as Circe. This must be her daughter, he thought. Howl handed the scroll to Circe and stepped back. Circe handed it to Nova and said, "Read it." Nova opened it and read. "The moon will bleed. The sun will go dark. And the heavens will come undone. But the eclipse is the key. A dragon is born of sun and moon. Control of both in his bloodline. Different paths will be open. One of the good, against the dark. But the other will be with the side that controls the dark." Nova set the scroll down and looked to Circe. "This is why?" he asked. Circe nodded. "My daughter had this prophecy a while ago. When she had it she was afraid, but I helped her through it." Nova became confused. Why was her daughter having a prophecy? Nova looked to King Howl and Queen Harmonia. Had they known of this? "Her daughter is Hecate and she is our seer. It means she's the only one that can receive a prophecy," said Queen Harmonia. The small dragon came out from behind King Howl. "Hello," she said. "I'm Hecate, daughter of Circe." "Who are you?" Nova looked at Hecate. She was almost an identical copy of Circe. Her scales were a deep brown with gold accents, but her eyes were deep purple with light purple irises and a black pupil. Her horns were golden and along her back there was a row of thin yellow spines. "I'm sorry, but I couldn't help but notice you seem to be staring at me. Is there something wrong?" Oops, Nova had been staring too much. "Oh no, nothing's wrong. I was just trying to get a good idea of what you look like in case I see you again." When he said this he thought he saw Hecate blush a little bit. Oh great, another dragon had a crush on him. Between Hecate and Zap, who else was going to have a crush on him? If I do show up with Hecate by my side, Zap might force himself on me. I wonder how he is doing. He probably is having a mental breakdown. Nova said. To Hecate, "I'm sorry to break it to you Hecate, but I kind of belong to another." Hecate hung her head. "Well, to change the subject," Harmonia chimed in, "we need to talk to you about your past. There are 2 dragons that I think you may want to meet." "My past, what does that mean?" "This way." Harmonia started down another tunnel. This one was lined with green fire. The other rulers descended along with Hecate. "You coming?" Chorus asked. Nova nodded and he followed the others down the tunnel. Chapter 7. Nova followed the others down the tunnel. It slowly opened into a large cavern with gold veins in the walls. Then Nova heard something. A song? Soon he saw a large room where 2 dragons, a sunflame and a moonflame, were laying down next to each other on a mat. They were singing a song. Nova tried to listen closely. He heard them singing, "Oh, won't you come to me, when I can keep you safe? With our warm embrace, we'll be a family. Come back to us to be whole once more." They stopped and looked directly at the leaders. "Why are you here? Any news on our child?" "A child? Between a sunflame and a moonflame?" "Yes, I believe we have found your son. He is here with us," said Queen Harmonia. She then motioned for Nova to come closer. Chorus had to push him. But when he was brought into view of the dragons, they began to cry. "Is it you? Can it really be?" said the sunflame. She approached him and put a claw on his shoulder. "Tell me, dear dragonette, what is your name?" asked the moonflame. Nova sighed and answered, "My name is Nova. Who are you?" The dragons became ecstatic. "We are your parents. I'm your mother Sunrise. This is your father Starlight." Nova backed up and said, "No, my mother is a moonflame named Crescent, and my sister is Luna." The moonflame named Starlight stepped closer and said, "Crescent is my sister. We asked her to look after you because we couldn't." Nova was dumbfounded. "Crescent is my aunt, so Luna is my cousin." Nova shook his head and frantically said, "No, no, no, this is not true. I was raised by Crescent. She is my mother. But if you are my parents, why did you abandon me?" Sunrise looked at him and said through tears, "No, we didn't abandon you. We had to leave you with your aunt. You're different." She tried to reach out to him, but Nova swatted her talon away and screamed, "Why couldn't you keep me? What is wrong with me?" Starlight walked over and said, "We were once king and queen of our respective flames, but before you were born all the flames rulers signed an agreement that we would not allow any hybrids in the royal bloodline. So we left you with your aunt to keep you safe. Me and your mother were hunted by the flames to be executed. But when we found this place, we finally had a home. We wanted to do the right thing and let you live a normal life." Nova was still in shock. These dragons were his parents by blood, he was royalty, this was why he looked so weird. Starlight looked at him and said, "Will you let us into your life?" "Nova, me and your mother want to be a family, a proper family." Nova looked between the dragons that were his true family. Finally he would be normal, his parents were right. Think. Sunrise began to weep. Starlight put a talon on her shoulder and looked to Nova. "I understand. We'll give you the time you need. Tell us when you're ready." Nova nodded and hugged his parents. A guard came running in and yelled, "King Howl, there is a group of dragons on the gate. They are demanding to see the Eclipse Dragon." Great, Nova had a title. King Howl responded, "What flame is leading them?" The guard looked at him and said, "It is a thunder flame and an ivy flame. They said their names are Zap and Honeydew." Nova gasped and bolted for the exit. He was going to his friends, and Zap. Chapter 8. "Stop, don't run," yelled the guards in the throne room. Nova flew through the market to the main gate. The dragon posted at the entrance was yelling, "Back up, no flame can enter without permission from a leader." Nova went to the guard and said, "Let them in, they're my friends, it's okay." The guard looked to him and said, "Sorry, but I can only let them in with orders from the leaders." Soon Nova heard wings beating behind him and a voice that said, "Let them in baritone, they can enter the sanctuary." It was Cersei. Baritone opened the door and let them in. Nova stood there and saw Zap right in front of him. "Nova!" Zap yelped. Zap hurled himself at Nova and embraced him in his wings. "I missed you. What happened? Are you okay? Did they hurt you, do you?" Zap asked frantically. Nova cut him off by cupping his face in his front talons. "I'm okay. I'm glad you're here, but how did you guys find me?" Nova said, "Thank Whitefrost, when we all got separated by the storm, Whitefrost managed to find you with her heat vision. When we all met back up she showed us to your location." Crystal chimed in. It was so good to hear her voice again. "I'm glad you're okay, Nova, I was scared for you." "Well, not as bad as Zap was," said Honeydew as she slithered over. Zap shot her a glare. "Nova, introduce your friends to us," said Queen Harmonia. Nova nodded and said, "Before I do, let's go to my parents so they are aware of everything too." King Howl nodded in agreement. All of them made their way to the room with Nova's parents and Nova explained everything to his friends, parents, and the leaders of the Forgotten Flames. When he finally finished, everyone was in a state of shock. The leaders and Nova's parents could not believe that Bloodmoon had returned after almost 100 years imprisoned in the Moonstone Peaks. Likewise, his friends found it hard to believe that there were flames regarded as monsters. One thing still troubled Nova: if Bloodmoon was imprisoned, how did he return? Nova looked at Honeydew, but she looked just as puzzled as he was. No answers. What if the imprisonment was placed to last only a certain amount of time, specifically 100 years? Said Starlight. That made sense to Nova. If there was a spell that was cast that lasted 100 years, that would be reasonable. But if there was a spell, why make it last only 100 years? Asked Flo. Hecate spoke up saying, if there was a spell, it most likely would have been cast by a mage flame. We're the only flame that has any magical abilities. If any of our ancestors worked to help seal Bloodmoon, they would have left a record of it. Wow, Hecate is really smart for her age. The library may hold the answers we need, I'll show the way. Said Queen Harmonia. They all flew to the library, but when they reached it they were in shock. Dragons were running, flying and screaming. Nova looked to see what was causing the chaos. Then he saw it. There were 3 dragons with red eyes and thin, frail bodies, and all around them were the creatures that Bloodmoon controlled, the Bloodleeches. Blister spread her wings and said, we have to kill them, that is the only way to keep this place safe. Nova looked to his friends. They all nodded in agreement. Nova led the charge as they began to attack the Bloodleeches. Chapter 9. Smash. Nova slammed a small group of Bloodleeches against the wall of the library. He and his friends were hard at work trying to get rid of all of them. Many of the guards joined them too. But no matter how many they killed, more came in through a hole in the ceiling. If we want to stop them from coming in, we are going to have to clog that hole," Flo said as she avoided the incoming attack. Nova looked around for something to clog the hole, then he saw it. In the middle of the library sat a giant stone, one big enough to clog the hole. "Queen Harmonia, is this rock important at all?" asked Nova. Harmonia shook her head. "It's only used as a decoration, you can use it." Nova nodded and began to try and lift the rock. Soon a dragon appeared on his left. It was Circe. She began to enact a spell as the rock began to levitate. Nova moved quickly, helping Circe to move the rock into place. "Crystal, can you melt this in place?" Nova asked. Crystal nodded and used her fire to melt the rim of the hole and the rock together. When she was done, almost all the blood leeches were gone. All that was left was them and the 3 dragons. King Howl managed to tackle 2 of them to the ground and hold them, while Blister tackled the 3rd one. Blister spoke to the dragon under her. "Tell us how you found us, or I'll heat my body and kill you with it." The dragon began to squirm and writhe to try and escape. Without a pause, Blister began to glow and the dragon died from the heat of her body. Nova looked a little scared until Zap put a wing around him. Blister walked over to King Howl and asked the same question. The dragons answered in unison, saying, "We serve Bloodmoon, he is king. He will rule all." Then they began to vomit blood and died. "Well, that question will forever be unanswered," Chorus said. Everyone looked at each other and chuckled and began to look in the shelves for the records of a Mageflame sealing Bloodmoon. After 1 hour, Nova found something. Everyone gathered around the main table and read the scroll. It was a diary entry from a Mageflame named Agatha. It said, "Entry number 102. I worked with the troops of the Noble Flames today. They were just as described in records. Their leader was General Conquest, a dragon with silver scales, red wings, and gold horns and claws. He told me of a plan thought up by their ruler, King Primordial. The plan was to try and place a spell on Bloodmoon that would make him become imprisoned in the highest mountain in the Moonstone Peaks. This spell could kill me if I am not careful. I don't know what to do. I need to think about it first." Nova was a little disappointed. This left him with more questions and no clear answer. "Well, at least we know the name of the dragon that placed the spell. She was Agatha. Now we can look for any records of her and hopefully find an answer." Everyone dispersed and began to look for anything that mentioned Agatha. It took 10 whole hours, but they finally found a record of the spell. It said, "Entry number 200. Today I am going to cast the spell to seal Bloodmoon. King Primordial wants me to make the spell last forever. That is impossible to do. No magic spell can last forever. But I made a way for it to last forever. In the spell, a line states that Bloodmoon will be free when a dragon of equal power is born. An example would be a Sunflame-Moonflame hybrid. That is the only way Bloodmoon could return. I'm the reason for Bloodmoon's return." Nova became distressed after reading the record. Zap looked at him. Nova was breathing heavily now. His lungs were on fire. "I'm the one who can save everyone, but I am also the reason for this destruction. It's my fault." "Nova, it's you. You're the reason Bloodmoon returned. You're as powerful as he is," said Chorus. Nova looked to the others and said, I have to go." Nova took flight and flew away. He saw Zap try to stop him. Nova flew to the main entrance and left, heading out into the freezing storm. Chapter 10. Nova flew through the storm, his wings aching from the cold, but he refused to go back. "I'm the reason for all the death and destruction that has happened with Bloodmoon's return." Nova finally succumbed to his body's demands and landed in the snow. He looked around for any shelter he could find. Then he saw it. There was a small fire in the distance. He began to move closer to it and found there was a dragon sitting next to it. "Hello there, who are you?" the dragon asked. The dragon had a thick brown cape draped around them. Nova could not make out a scale color or wing shape. But the voice of the dragon was calm, and his eyes were glowing with a faint teal light. "Who are you?" Nova asked. The dragon turned to Nova and removed his cape. Nova was shocked. The dragon in front of him had a mix of light and dark green scales, thin wings, black-gray horns and long whiskers. "My name is Bangle. I'm a Jade Flame." "Another flame. That means there is more. How is he here?" Nova thought. Bengal explained, "I know you may not know of us, but we mean no harm." Nova walked up to Bengal and said, "My name is Nova." Nova told Bengal about what happened. Bengal listened intently and said at the end, "Well, I think that I could help you to find out about the spell that was placed upon Bloodmoon by Agatha. The old Noble Flame Kingdom should have the answers." Answers, that's what Nova needed. Bengal and Nova began the long flight to the ruins of the Noble Flame Kingdom. On the first night they set up camp near the edge of the Polar Flame Kingdom. They set up a fire and hunted a few small animals to eat. "Hey Bengal, what are the jade flames like?" Nova asked. Bengal put down the small lizard he was eating and sighed. "Well, my kind once was prosperous here. We lived here, but we had left long before Bloodmoon came to power. When our leader felt the balance of nature disturbed on Kaiken, I was sent to help stop the source. One thing I brought with me is a map of Kaiken before the map was changed by Bloodmoon." Bengal shows the map to Nova, showing the old kingdoms of the Lost Flames. Each castle had the flame's name next to it, in order to show the flame's home. Wow, this was what Kaiken looked like before Bloodmoon whipped some flames from the records. Bengal nodded. He put the map back in his bag and continued to eat. The next day they found themselves flying over a large wall that was partially destroyed. That was the wall that was constructed around the edge of the Noble Flame Kingdom after Bloodmoon attacked. Soon they came upon the main palace. It was overrun with plant life and wild animals in the destroyed towers. They landed in what looked like a courtyard with roses, lilies, and other bright flowers. "I'm surprised that they have stayed after all this time." Nova looked around and found a small artifact. It was a small dagger engraved with small dragons on the handle. When he showed it to Bengal, he gasped. This was the dagger that must have been used to perform the ritual to seal Bloodmoon. Agatha must have used it with her blood. There is still some dried on here. Nova looked around again and realized something. The courtyard they were in was really a ritual circle that was used by Agatha. Part 2. Revelation. Chapter 11. Nova looked around the circle, seeing different symbols at each cardinal direction. What did Agatha do with this? Bengal found other artifacts hidden by Agatha. There was an obsidian chalice, a book of spells, and a large woven mat. What was the importance of all of these items? Nova asked. There was no connection between the items found, they all seemed to be random. Well, what if the library has something in it that could tell us? Bengal chimed in. The two of them set off to the old library, and when they arrived they found it in perfect condition. How? They didn't know. They began to look around for anything that mentions Agatha until they found a whole section on the mage flames. They must have a section for each flame. Bengal stated. They found old records of the mage flames using different times for different rituals. Then they found a record of a spell that was able to seal any dragon in a desired area. It said, for the spell of containment, one must use a mat woven by themselves, a dagger to gather the blood of the caster, an obsidian chalice to hold the blood, and a piece of the area they wish to contain the dragon. They then must enact the spell from their book, but in order to ensure they survive they must have a clause that the spell can be broken if a certain thing or event happens. Well, this definitely gave Nova the answers he needed. Now he knew what the spell was and what Agatha did. Nova, look at this. Bengal said, pulling Nova back to reality. Bengal slid a record over to him, a spell that would bring the eclipse. Nova read the spell with extreme intent. It said, Eclipse spell. Perform in an open area, use a chunk of glowing amber and a pale white moonstone. Melt them together in a small bowl made of jade, and mold it into the shape of a teardrop and place it in a necklace of golden chains. The dragon then must wear the pendant and say, with this stone upon my soul, come together sun and moon. If done correctly the moon and sun will slowly come together, but you must stay in total concentration to ensure they come together. To break the sun and moon apart you must hold the pendant in your talons and say, I release the burden of the sun and moon, and they will separate. Well, if I am destined to cause the eclipse, this would be the spell to use. Nova looked to Bengal. This spell could help me with my so-called destined future. If I am to bring the moon and sun together, I must perfect this spell. Bengal nodded in agreement. Nova handed the scroll to Bengal, who put it in his bag. On the way out of the library Nova saw something. It was a book. A book about a spell to create a blood moon. The problem was, some of the pages were missing. Chapter 12. Nova read through the book on the blood moon spell, trying to see what the missing pages contained. Bangle, have you ever seen this book? Bangle looked at the book in Nova's talons and gasped, No, I have never seen that book. It must have been created by the Mage Flames? Bangle thought that before Blood Moon came to power he stole the spell to bring forth the Blood Moon. There must have been an importance with it. Nova thought of something. What if Blood Moon used that spell to gain power? Do moon flames have a special connection to the Blood Moon? Nova decided that they should look for any records of the Blood Moon and what it does to moon flames. The search continued for another night until they found it. There was an old record from a breeze flame that ended up in the Moonflame Kingdom. The record said that the moon flames became violent and destructive under the moon's red glow. So if the Blood Moon does this, why does Blood Moon want it? This experience sounds excruciatingly painful. Soon Nova saw a large swarm of blood leeches heading in the direction of the Moonflame Kingdom. Bangle, I think we should go back to the Moonflame Kingdom. We need to see what is going on there. Bangle looked to see the blood leeches and agreed with Nova. The two of them set off to the southwest, right to the Moonflame Kingdom. The flight took them 2 days, but when they came to the kingdom's shores, there was blood and chaos all around. Nova was disgusted by the sight. We have to go to the palace to see what is happening there, Nova said. They crossed the ruins of what was once a village of gentle dragons. Now the streets were littered with the corpses of dragons drained of life and blood. They soon came into sight of the palace. It was surprisingly in great condition, besides the blood that stained the once pale stone. The two of them looked in through one of the windows of the throne room. Blood Moon sat in the large throne, his wings folded and his eyes burning red. Many blood leeches circled him. More came in and attacked themselves to him. They soon began to pour a red liquid into his body. Blood Moon's eyes pulsed as he sighed with satisfaction. Finally, it is time to make the sky bleed. He stepped down and exited the place. He took flight and traveled to the tallest mountain, Mount Moonspine. Nova and Bangle followed far behind him, trying to go unnoticed. Soon they landed at a large clearing at the top of the mountain, where he took off his golden crown and set it on a pedestal. Come to me, my minions, he said. Another 100 blood leeches swarmed the mountain, each one as big as Blood Moon's claws. They all gathered together and attached to Blood Moon's wings, neck, and front arms. He raised his head and claws to the sky and said, I now call to you my ancestors, fly to the sky and kill the moon. Make its blood stain its white body and the sky. Let my power flow throughout the land. Blood Moon's eyes began to glow bright red. Then the moon slowly turned red, and when it fully turned, the sky went pale pink in a flash. Blood Moon turned around and said, Oh, the dragon of the eclipse has come to stop me. Nova's eyes widened. He and Bangle ran and took flight, bolting away. Chapter 13. Nova's wings beat against the air. Bangle was close behind with his long body slithering in the air. Nova heard his heart racing and the sound of Blood Moon closing in behind them. Nova tried to escape, but his wings gave out. He began to fall from the sky. Fly, fly, I need to get away. Nova looked to the mountain only to see Bangle restrained by the blood leeches. Then he stopped falling. He was caught by Blood Moon. Shish, don't move, it will only make it worse. Blood Moon had Nova in his talons. Before he was surrounded by darkness, he saw the blood leeches attacking Bangle, trapping him mid-air. Nova awoke in a cage. He looked around and saw he was suspended over the throne room of the palace. He tried to stand, but his back leg was broken, and his left wing. Nova looked to see Blood Moon sitting below him. He thought to himself, why did he trap me here? Nova looked around to try and find Bangle. If Nova was here, Blood Moon likely brought Bangle here too. He looked back to Blood Moon's throne, and Nova noticed he looked different than before. His once gray body turned black, his wings were a blood red, and his eyes were pulsing with red light, and the blood leeches were circling him in perfect formation. What happened to him? The door slammed open. Nova jumped and looked to see who it was. It was a Moonflames under Blood Moon's control. All is secure, my king. There are no sirens, beasts, or witches, the dragon announced. He's referring to the lost flames, Nova thought. Then he remembered, the song Flames had a healing song. Nova hummed it to himself, and his leg and his wing became functional again. Now he had to break out. What could he do? The bars were made of metal and he could not breathe fire, or, could he? His mother was a sunflame and they were dragons with the hottest fire known to anyone. Nova waited for Bloodmoon to leave the room, then he tried to blast the bars, but it didn't work. He became annoyed. If I'm half sunflame, why can't I use fire? Nova shouted. No one heard him thankfully. But in his rage he noticed the floor beneath him had melted slightly. Maybe I can't breathe fire, but raise my body temperature to melt the bars. Nova grabbed onto the bars and clenched his talons. After a minute the bars melted. Nova squirmed through the melted bars and landed on the floor of the throne room. Now he had to find Bangle. Nova looked around for the entrance to the dungeon, but he could not find it. In his desperation he grabbed a book about the layout of the palace, but when he pulled it off the shelf, the wall next to it opened. A secret door mechanism, smart move from the royal family. Nova descended down the staircase. It was dark and musty and it didn't help that there were only a few torches down here. Nevertheless Nova made it all down and entered the dungeon. Bangle, anyone? Nova asked as he wandered around the empty cells. Who's there? Called a voice. Nova followed the voice and found a dragon he never expected to be in a dungeon, Queen Full Moon. Your Majesty, why are you here? Nova asked. The Queen responded, Bloodmoon put me in here. He is planning something with me though. He said he needs all the rulers in order to do something. Nova walked over to the bars and melted a hole for Full Moon to slip out through. Soon he heard another voice. Are there any other dragons here, Your Majesty? Nova asked the Queen. She responded that she saw 2 guards bring an emerald green dragon to a deeper chamber. Nova asked for Full Moon to lead the way. Full Moon led Nova into the deep chambers. They were so deep that bats were hanging from the ceiling. Nova was stunned when he saw what was below. Deep in that chamber was a large number of imprisoned dragons, but what shocked him the most was they were all jade flames. Chapter 14. Nova looked around to see if he was dreaming, but no, all of the dragons in this chamber were jade flames. All of them look identical to Bangle. Bangle, are you there? Nova called out. He heard a voice respond from the far corner. There he found Bangle, bound to the floor with an obsidian chain. Nova, you have to escape. Bloodmoon is planning to destroy all of Kaiken. Nova shook his head. He walked over to the chain and tried to melt it, but no matter how hard he tried the chain would not budge. Nova, those chains can only be opened with a key, an obsidian key. The only one in the place is in the room of the reigning monarch. I can try and get it. Nova disagreed. If Full Moon left she could be spotted by Bloodmoon. Well, what else can we do? I also want to free these dragons, said Full Moon. Nova tried to reason, saying that whatever Blue Moon was planning needed the rulers of all flames. She needed to stay safe. Well, what do we do? The only way to free these dragons is to use an obsidian key, and the only one is in my room. But you won't let me get it because of Bloodmoon. Full Moon went to a far corner and sulked. Great look for a queen, Nova thought. Well, she was right. The only way was to get the key, unless Nova left them here and got the aid of the lost flames. Circe, Harmonia and Howl would gladly help him. Bangle, Full Moon, I have allies. If I get to them I could get an army to free your kind. Bangle and Full Moon agreed to Nova's plan. Full Moon promised not to leave the chamber. Before he left, Bangle gave Nova his bag containing the map, and the spell for the eclipse. Be careful, Bangle said. Nova exited the dungeon, slipped through the throne room and exited the palace, flying to the sanctuary and his friends. Nova arrived in the Polar Flame Kingdom after a non-stop, 5-day flight. There was no storm this time, and the snow seemed to glow in the sunset. Nova went to the location of Chorus Igloo and entered. All was the same as when he was first here. He started down the tunnel and came to the door. Nah, said Baritone, the guard from before. When he saw it was Nova he gasped and opened the door immediately. You came back, it's good to see you again. Baritone said. Nova smiled at him and asked if anything was wrong after he left. Baritone said no, but the Thunderflame was in deep despair. He hasn't left his room since you left, he said. Nova sighed. He wasn't surprised at all. Nova thanked Baritone and left for the throne room. Nova flew and landed on the ledge of the throne room. The door was closed shut and 4 guards were posted at the door. 2 were wolf flames and the other 2 were mage flames. Nova said his name and that he wished to see the leaders. No visitors, the leaders are planning. Nova became a little upset. He knew they would want to see him, but the guards wouldn't let him. As Nova turned to go and wait for the door to open, he heard a familiar voice say, "Oh, you're back. You too can let him in." Nova turned around and saw it was Chorus. The guards cracked the door open and let Nova in. Chapter 15. Nova saw the 3 rulers at a large table, Howl at the head, Circe at the left with her daughter and Harmonia on the right. "Nova, you have returned. We thought that Bloodmoon had killed you," Circe said. The 3 left the table and hugged Nova. Nova explained what happened at the palace and about the jade flames. Many of the details made Harmonia shake with fear. When he was done, he said that he needed the help of the lost flames to free and bring the jade flames and all the flames rulers to the sanctuary. "No, we can't let any other flames in. We're sorry, Nova, we can't trust any other flames," Harmonia said. Nova understood. If he was in their position, he would not trust others. Nova asked if he could go to his friends and tell them about everything. They allowed him and Hecate showed him the way, and she then departed after they arrived. "I am nervous, but at least I'll see them." Nova opened the door and entered the room. "Nova, you're back, I'm glad," said Flo, who was gliding around the room. Then Nova heard a dragon running down the hall. "Oh no, it's Zap." Nova ducked under a sofa nearby and waited for Zap to come crashing in. "Flo, where is he? I heard you say his name." Zap shouted. Boy, was he happy. Nova signaled to Flo to not reveal his location, but she did. Zap shoved the sofa so hard that it almost hit the wall. Zap grabbed Nova and held him close. "You're not allowed to leave me again, you hear?" Nova nodded and wrapped his wing around Zap's back. "I won't, don't worry." The 2 of them stayed like that for a minute before the others came in and hugged Nova too. "Nova, what happened out there?" Crystal asked. "Yeah, you look worried," Cecropia chimed in. Nova sat down and told them about the whole thing, the spell, the ritual performed by Bloodmoon, and the jade flames. His friends listened intently to understand. So another flame lived here, but they left before Bloodmoon came to power? Whitefrost said when Nova finished. Nova confirmed. "What is odd to me is that Bloodmoon brought the Blood Moon up, because as you said, old records stated that the event would cause intense pain to the Moonflames. So why did he do it?" Nova could not give her a definitive answer, only able to think what Bloodmoon wanted to with all the rulers of the flames. "Well, one thing is certain, Bloodmoon has a plan and it is not a good one," Honeydew stated. "We have to warn the other flames, so we can try to prevent the upcoming disaster Bloodmoon will cause." Nova agreed and came up with a plan. Each of them would go to warn their respective leaders. Honeydew warns Rosethorn, Zap warns Bolthorn, Whitefrost warns Iceshard, Blister warns Celestial, Cecropia warns Atlas, Flo warns Gust, Crystal warns Amethyst, and I will try to help Full Moon. Nova said to everyone, "The rulers here are ready to attack Bloodmoon, but we need the others to help." Everyone agreed. They needed to gain the support of every flame on Kaiken. Nova parted with his friends and the Lost Flames rulers as they left to find their flames. Zap went south, Blister, Honeydew and Flo went west, Crystal and Cecropia went south and Whitefrost went further north to the capital. Lastly, Nova left after all of his friends, heading in the direction of Cecropia and Crystal, right to the location where Bloodmoon was. Chapter 16. Nova's flight was difficult. The storm had returned and he could not see far ahead of him. Despite the storm, he managed to find his way out and began to fly in the direction of the Moonflame Kingdom, but it was here that he noticed something strange. The moon was its normal pale white out here. What is going on right now? Nova continued his flight and began to notice an odd sight, the sky slowly turning red the closer he got to the Moonflame Kingdom. What if Bloodmoon can't make the moon appear red outside of the kingdom the ritual is performed in? That might be why he wants all the rulers captured. Soon Nova finally came to the Moonflame Palace. The palace was now covered in red, many blood leeches circled the towers. Nova stealthily crept to the door and slipped in unnoticed. He stayed in the shadows and arrived at the bookshelf. He opened the door and slipped down. He finally came to the chamber with the Jade Flames and Queen Full Moon. "Nova, you're back. We need your help. Blood Moon has set out to kidnap the rulers of the Ivy Flames and Moth Flames. We have to warn the other rulers," said Full Moon. Nova asked how she knew this. She explained that she had heard a conversation between the guards that occasionally came down into the dungeon. Nova realized the danger everyone was in and made a choice. They had to escape and flee. Nova spoke to Full Moon saying, "Queen Full Moon, can you reach your chambers and retrieve the obsidian key? You must remain hidden until you get it." She agreed. She ascended the stairs and left the dungeon. "Bengal, do you know how your flame ended up here? That seems odd." Nova asked Bengal. Bengal responded, "Apparently Blood Moon found out where our island was. He captured half my flame and has been keeping them here. I think that is why my leader sent me here." Nova looked around at the Jade Flames. Some were only dragonettes, others were severely injured. This was not right in Nova's eyes. Nova looked to Bengal and said, "If this is what Blood Moon is doing to your flame, I can only imagine what he will do to the others. We have to get you and your flame out of here. Now." Right as Nova finished this statement, Queen Full Moon returned. "I got it. I got the key. Hurry and let's get out of here." Nova and Full Moon worked to free all the Jade Flames and rushed them all out of the palace. "Where to now, Nova?" asked Queen Full Moon. "The Moon Flames are still here." Bengal looked to her and said, "Your Majesty, your flame has been taken over by Blood Moon. We must leave before they capture us." Queen Full Moon tried to protest, but the Jade Flames all rushed away from the kingdom. Nova, Full Moon and Bengal followed the Jade Flames all the way to the edge of the coast. "Now what?" asked Full Moon, but before she could finish her sentence, the Jade Flames gathered together and began to chant, calling for their god to come forth from the sea. As they finished, a large serpent rose from the sea. Its scales were a deep blue with a tint of green. Its eyes were solid white, and its roar shook the very ground they stood on. "Bengal, who is that?" Nova asked. Bengal looked at him and said, "This is our guardian. His name is Bakunawa." Chapter 17. Bakunawa, wasn't he the serpent that tried to swallow the moons of Kaiken but failed because of the Moonflame's interference? Nova could not believe that Bakunawa stood before him. His body went into a defensive stance as Bakunawa lowered his head. "Who are you?" resounded Bakunawa's voice. His breath smelled of dead fish and seaweed. "Oh great Bakunawa, they are my friends. They mean no harm to us," Bengal said. Bakunawa's head rose back up as he focused his attention on the other Jade Flames. Nova was startled along with Full Moon. One of their ancient enemies was right before them. "Are you two okay? You look like you must have seen a..." Bengal paused and looked between Full Moon, Nova and Bakunawa before realizing. "Oh, I forgot, the Moonflames were threatened by Bakunawa hundreds of years ago. Now I get it." Nova wanted to hit Bengal with a rock. "Of course we are startled. Bakunawa almost killed the Moonflames." His thoughts could only go to the legends he was told of Bakunawa's attack. Nova saw the Jade Flames climb onto Bakunawa's back and then he was hit with realization. "Bengal, are you leaving?" Bengal nodded. He explained that now that his flame was safe, he had to return home with them. Bengal hugged Nova saying that he had enjoyed his company, and Bengal climbed onto Bakunawa's back. "Nova catch," Bengal called as he threw his satchel to Nova. Nova caught it, but as he looked back up he saw Bakunawa disappeared into the fog. "Nova, what did he give you?" Full Moon asked him. Nova opened the bag and saw what was in it. In the bag was the scroll for the Eclipse spell, a chant to call upon Bakunawa when he was needed, and a jade bowl engraved with the image of Bakunawa. "Queen Full Moon, I know what we need to do. But first, we have to gather the leader of the flames." Chapter 18. Nova and Queen Full Moon flew to the closest kingdom, that being the Mothflame Kingdom, to speak with Elder Atlas. Nova saw that the fields around the kingdom that were once full of lavender were parched and barren. They flew with intent as they reached the Mothflame's home tree. Elder Atlas should be in the structure at the center of the tree. "Let's go," Full Moon said. They descended and entered the throne room. "Who goes there?" called a voice. Nova looked around and saw 4 guards at the foot of the throne. "We wish to speak with Elder Atlas. It is important," Nova cried. Sorry, but he is in a meeting right now, no one can talk to him, said another guard. Soon a side door opened and out stepped Elder Atlas and Cecropia. Nova, what are you doing here? Called Cecropia. They rushed to each other and hugged. Elder Atlas asked what was going on and Nova explained everything. Well, that is some new information. What is the plan now? Said Elder Atlas. Full Moon explained a plan. They needed all the Flames leaders to meet and form an alliance to stop Blood Moon, once and for all. Atlas agreed and accompanied them as they flew to the Gemflame Kingdom. The four of them arrived at the Gemflame Kingdom and talked with Queen Amethyst and Crystal about this plan. I don't know about this. What if the plan fails and we just end up dead? Said Queen Amethyst. Amethyst, please, we need the help of all the flames to make this work, replied Full Moon. Queen Amethyst was the queen that many dragons loved for her kind spirit and her loyalty to her subjects. Mother, you must help us. Think of the dragons that could be killed if we don't help. Many innocent lives would be lost, Crystal told her mother, holding Amethyst's front talon in hers. Amethyst sighed and said, Okay, I'll help. Crystal jumped with joy as she hugged her mother saying, Thank you Mom, I love you so much. Amethyst hugged her and said, I love you to Crystal. Good, Nova thought, next the Thunderflames. They all headed north to the palace of King Bolthorn. Father, please listen to me, the others need our help, called a voice from the council room. The sound of breaking glass soon followed as King Bolthorn argued with another Thunderflame. The group entered and saw King Bolthorn throwing a glass at Zap. Nova cried as he ran to protect Zap from the incoming glass. Queen Amethyst cried out, King Bolthorn, calm yourself down, you have no reason to attack your son. Nova looked at Amethyst with a puzzled expression, asking, What do you mean Queen Amethyst? Queen Amethyst looked just as puzzled as she said, Nova, that Thunderflame you're guarding right now is King Bolthorn's son, Prince Zap. Nova's eyes widened as he stared back at Zap, You're a prince. Nova recoiled from Zap's grip as he stumbled to get back up. Everyone was staring at them now. King Bolthorn roared as he said, Son, what is your relation to this? His tone changed as he said, Dragon? Zap rose to his feet and said, Father, this is Nova, my partner. Zap stood next to Nova and put his wing around him. Everyone was in shock, but then Bolthorn roared, I'll kill you, as he lunged for Nova. The Lost Song Prophecy. Chapter 19. Nova ducked as Bolthorn lunged for his neck. You brat! Bolthorn shouted as he lunged again. This time Elder Atlas stood between them shouting, Stop Bolthorn! Bolthorn halted, stepping back from Elder Atlas. Queen Amethyst stepped next to Atlas, along with Full Moon. You are by far the worst king that the Thunderflames have seen, Full Moon barked. Zap collapsed down to comfort Nova, who was shaking from fear. Nova, listen to me, you're okay. Cecropia and Crystal joined, trying to comfort Nova as Atlas, Full Moon and Amethyst argued with Bolthorn. Nova fell into Zap's arms trying to stop himself from shaking. Zap, why didn't you tell me that you were Bolthorn's son? Nova asked. Zap looked down and replied, I didn't think that it was important. I just thought that you would have been better off if I did not tell you. Nova rose to his feet and said, It makes a big difference. You do know that same-gender relationships are forbidden in the royal family of any flame. Zap nodded his head and said, But I'm not next in line, my brother Bolt is. Nova could not believe him, lying to him and now trying to make their relationship okay. Zap, if we are going to be in a relationship, I don't want you to lie or keep secrets from each other. Zap agreed. The group decided to leave and let the rulers talk about the plan. Zap led them to the garden atop the palace, showing them some of his favorite plants. And that one is the amber drop. It can produce a glowing piece of amber every hour. Nova stopped and opened the scroll Bengal gave him. He read the line, Use a chunk of glowing amber. Nova turned to Zap and asked when the flower would produce one again. Zap replied that it would any second. To Nova's surprise, as Zap finished speaking, the flower began to glow as a glowing piece of amber fell from its petals. Nova grabbed it and stuffed it into his bag. The other turned to him and asked what he needed it for. Nova produced the scroll and said he was going to try and raise the eclipse. Do you really think it can work? Asked Crystal after she read it. Nova said that he believed it would. Soon a guard came to them saying that the king was summoning them to the council room. The four of them entered and saw King Bolthorn in a better mood than before. King Bolthorn has agreed to help us with our plan. Now we must go to the breeze flames. They all set out, flying to the nearest breeze flame outpost. As they entered the outpost, a swarm of breeze flames came flying out, screaming that something had killed Elder Gust. The group entered and found a large nest of blood leeches inside the outpost. "We can handle this, just like before," said Nova. The others nodded and began to drive the blood leeches away. Chapter 20. The blood leeches were no match for them. Many of them fled as Nova, Zap, Crystal, and Cecropia battled through them. By the end many of them were dead. Queen Amethyst rushed in and found Elder Gust's lifeless body in what was once the council room. "Now what? We can't talk to the Breeze Flames leader now," said Queen Full Moon. Soon Flo came flying crying that it was her fault. She said that she was followed by a small group of bloodleeches and could not stop them. Nova comforted her, saying that she was not to blame. "Well, now the plan is going to fall apart without the Breeze Flames," Flo cried out. "No, it won't," called another voice. Everyone turned around to see another breeze flame in the doorway. "I am Wind Drake, wife of Elder Gust. Now that my husband is dead, the power of the breeze flames falls onto me, and I will help you all, as long as you avenge my husband." The leaders agreed with the new Elder Wind Drake. With her they flew north to the Ivy Flame Kingdom. They reached the Ivy Flame Kingdom and spoke with Elder Rosethorn and Honeydew. Honeydew explained that she had received a vision that Bloodmoon was slowly reaching his full power and they needed to recruit the Sun and Polar Flames as soon as possible. They conversed with Queen Celestial and King Iceshard and they both agreed to help, in the process reuniting with Blister and Whitefrost. Soon they all reached the entrance to the Lost Flames hideout. As they entered the igloo, Chorus was there. "Nova, what are you doing here?" she asked. Nova explained everything. "No, I don't think our leaders will let you in. Remember, we don't trust other flames." Nova tried to persuade her but it did not help. He then decided to find another place but he was stopped as the leaders came in through the tunnel. "Nova, we heard about your plan from Hecate's visions. We will allow your leaders in but only them." "Is that understood?" stated Queen Harmonia. Nova was ecstatic and agreed. The group followed the leaders into the hideout, and straight to the council room. Part 3. Building a Resistance. Chapter 21. Now, time to discuss a battle plan. King Howl started as Cersei rolled out a map of Kaiken. The leaders gathered around and began to speak. "Well, I personally think that we need to find a way to at least contain the range of Bloodmoon's control. We do not need it to spread from the Moonflame Kingdom into another," said Elder Wind Drake. Most nodded in agreement but Cersei interjected saying, "Well, if we are to contain his power, we need to find a place to contain him, and hopefully kill him this time. We do not need history to repeat itself." Everyone agreed to this addition. "If we are to force him back, the Thunderflame army will be our best shot." "My army is the strongest of all," boasted King Bolthorn. Nova interjected saying, "We don't need the strongest army. I think we should use a system, starting with a squadron that gradually forces him back." Nova grabbed an inkwell and drew a sketch, drawing circles with numbers next to them. "Nova, I am sorry to ask this but can you leave the war talk to us?" asked Queen Amethyst. Nova agreed but did not want to. He exited the council room and left to go see his friends. Nova flung himself on the sofa and sighed. He wanted to help in any way he could but the leaders would not let him. Soon Zap fell on top of him. "What is wrong now?" he asked. Nova sighed again and told Zap that he felt that he should be part of the discussion on how to stop Bloodmoon because he was the one destined to. Zap comforted him saying that they probably wanted to ensure the leaders could all converge on a plan. Nova buried his face into Zap's chest, trying to see his point of view. "This still feels wrong, now that I know your royalty," Nova said. Zap sighed and replied, "Well, I don't care. You are my partner and no one will change that." Zap covered Nova with his wings as they both fell asleep. "Wake up you two," shouted Flo. Nova's head shot up, hitting Zap in the process. What is it?" Nova asked. Flo responded saying that the leaders were calling for Nova. Nova got up and prepared to leave but turned back and said, "Zap, want to come with me?" Zap nodded profusely. The two of them left the room and flew to the council room. "Nova, good," said Circe as he and Zap entered. "What is it?" Nova asked. The leaders explained that they had come up with a plan to contain Bloodmoon. Nova looked at his bag. "I need that piece of pale white moonstone for the enchantment." "Queen Full Moon, do you by chance know where I can find a piece of pale white moonstone?" Queen Full Moon grabbed her crown and popped out the centerpiece. "This is the only pale white moonstone ever found. Why do you need it?" Nova took out the scroll and explained his plan. After he was done, Queen Full Moon tossed it to him and said, "Take it. If you think the eclipse will help, do it." Nova placed it in his bag and asked for a golden chain. Queen Harmonia gave one of her necklaces to him. "Now go, but be careful," said King Howl. Nova nodded as he and Zap left the hideout, and flew to the Moonstone Peaks to perform the ritual. Chapter 22. Nova and Zap flew for a long time. They stopped near one of the Breezeflame's outposts. They started a fire and ate anything they could find. "Hey Nova, I have a question." Nova looked at Zap. He continued, "I was wondering, once this whole ordeal with Bloodmoon is over, would you like to be my mate for life?" Nova's eyes widened. "Zap, are you asking me to marry you?" Zap nodded to confirm. Nova nodded his head. "Yes, I will marry you, Zap." Zap threw his wings around Nova. They soon fell asleep, claw in claw with their tails intertwined. Nova awoke to see countless dragons of other flames flying towards the Moonflame Kingdom. "Zap, wake up, we have to leave now." Zap sprung awake. They gathered their supplies and left for the Moonstone Peaks. Nova and Zap were frightened by the condition of the town surrounding the Moonflame Palace. Many homes were destroyed, dead dragons littered the streets, and many dragons were fighting amongst one another. Nova's home was completely in ruins. Many of the dragons he was once close with were now dead on the street. They finally reached the Moonstone Peaks. Nova and Zap began to prepare. Zap helped Nova prepare the jade bowl given to him by Bengal. Zap then placed down the scroll, the amber on the right, and then placed the moonstone on the left. He placed his head on Nova's as they shared a moment together. The Zap stood back and let Nova handle the rest. Nova approached the bowl and began the ceremony. He used his sunflame powers to melt the amber and moonstone into the bowl. He waited a moment before grabbing the glob and shaping it into a teardrop. The amber and moonstone swirled together, creating a beautiful pendant. He then connected it to the golden necklace given to him by Queen Harmonia, and chanted, "With this stone upon my soul, come together sun and moon." Soon in the east the sun began to rise. The sun crossed the sky and approached the moons. Location. Nova raised his claws and pressed them together. The sun slowly drifted behind the moon as the sky darkened, not red, but black. Nova focused all his power into ensuring the spell was done. Nova soon saw something, a blood leech, heading right for them. Zap was attacked. The leech drained his blood until he fell unconscious, and soon a roar shook the mountain, and Bloodmoon rose above the horizon, and snatched Nova in his claws. The sun and moon drifted apart as Nova was taken back to the palace. Chapter 23. Nova and Bloodmoon entered the palace. The entire palace was now stained and not a drop of white remained. As they entered, Nova was forced down by two guards. Bloodmoon spoke, "You little dragon, you thought I would not notice you and your partner flying across my kingdom." Nova spat in his face. "This is not your kingdom, it belongs to the Moonflame royal family, my family." Bloodmoon laughed and looked back to Nova. "You really have not noticed. I am no moonflame, but a bloodflame, a flame most powerful." Nova was shocked. Bloodmoon, it was staring him in the face this whole time. His appearance and powers were nothing like those of a moonflame. "But what are the blood leeches?" Nova asked. Bloodmoon responded, "Oh, they are a gift from an old mageflame friend. Her name was Circe, I believe." Circe created the blood leeches. They are not animals but instead creations to help me do my bidding, and they are so obedient. Nova could not believe what was happening right now. Circe was the leader of the Mage Flames, and part of the reason the Forgotten Flames had to hide. "But one thing I did not expect was that the Sirens would help you. Queen Harmonia and Chorus are not to be trusted." Nova shot a dirty glare at Bloodmoon. the song flames are not sirens, they are a flame of healing dragons, not controlling their minds. Blood Moon hissed, and those pesky jade flames with their god Bakunawa, what a shame I could not control them in Bakunawa. Could you imagine having the most powerful creature ever at your control? Nova's mind went back to the bag, Bakunawa's chant, if I use it, Bakunawa can save me. Nova tried to reach for his bag but was stopped by the guard holding him. Well, now that I have you, nothing can stop me, not even your friends, right Circe? Nova looked behind Blood Moon, and there in the darkness stood Circe. Yes, Blood Moon dear, now nothing can stop us. Circe stepped forward and grabbed Nova by the chin. You really are a pathetic dragon. She then smacked him across the face. Nova was taken down to the dungeon. He took out the scroll, and called for Bakunawa to help. Nova began to read the chant, O great serpent below, answer me in endless woe, with coils of blue and green, you wait unseen. But now I call to you, the serpent of the high moon. Nova repeated the chant until night came upon the land, and the light of hope within him was extinguished. Epilogue. In the sea of moonlight. The ocean stirred, the waves crashed, the moon began to tremble in fear. The jade flames gathered on the shore as their god and guardian rose from the deep. Bakunawa opened his eyes and spoke to the masses. I am being called to Kaiken, the time of destruction is nigh. But fear not, for I will return, and with this Bakunawa swam to the shores of Kaiken once more.